Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast, a weekly show featuring B2B sales leaders and executives. Hosted by five-time CRO John McMahon and Force Management co-founder John Kaplan, the show goes behind the scenes with the people who have been there, done that, and seen the results. If you enjoy our content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. Revenue Builders is brought to you by Force Management. We help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Find us at forcemanagement.com. Enjoy today's episode.
We're joined by the one and only Mark Roberge. He's the founding CRO of HubSpot, senior lecturer at Harvard Business School, co-founder of Stage 2 Capital, and author of a new book that's coming out February 3rd, The Science of Scaling. So, hey, Mark, what I love about the book is that it doesn't treat scaling as like a one-time event. It doesn't treat the ideal customer profile as a one-time, one and done event. It doesn't treat product market fit as like one and done. And it treats scaling as like a system and a process with guiding metrics that evolve through the, major stages, from startup through growth. And then, as you put it, building a moat around the business and around the product. But you start the book by talking a little bit about, 5 failures that you've seen multiple times, and I have too, amongst seed-funded businesses, like premature focus on top line, product market fit's not data-driven. Let's go over a couple of these things real quickly.
Yeah. Thank you, Johnny Mac and John Cap. You guys are some of the few folks that's seen him more than I have. So I appreciate that. It resonated, the stuff that you've seen. Appreciate you guys checking the book out early too. So Mac, like as you said, there was never an intention to write this book. It's sometimes you go out, you do speeches, you write stuff that you're seeing, and sometimes it hits in a timeless way, in an abstract way. And I just felt like every time I went and talked about this, I had so many founders and investors come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, like I was about to stumble on that, or I have stumbled on that. And like you fall onto something. Even this like retired faculty member from HBS that's been retired 20 years, it's like, wow, you've stumbled across something really cool. Like in that he's seen a lot, in terms of like frameworks, et cetera. But yeah, Mac, as you point out, like really over the last 10 years, I've been out of HubSpot as an operator. So I've gone from seeing one play 80 hours a week to like dozens every week. And, you just end up in a contextual area where you see a lot of patterns. And for the 5 years between HubSpot and starting Stage 2, I was full-time faculty at Harvard teaching the sales course, but I was invited to serve on the boards or invest or be advisors to a whole bunch of different companies. And I chose one a quarter to really dig in, some like you did with me, Mac, at HubSpot. And some of them, one went IPO, a couple went to billion, and a bunch went bankrupt. And it was just like, hey, why? And that's where everything pulled back to, was the inappropriate choice of when to scale revenue and how fast. And it's like, it's crazy that when you ask a lot of these boards, the time that they choose is when they get an infusion of capital. And the pacing they choose is to look up the first 2 years of Snowflake and copy that. That's like crazy.
Right.
Or like they use the expected internal rate of return of their venture capital asset class to drive how fast a software company should scale. And it's just like, I think that the failure rate in the ecosystem is unnecessarily high because of a lack of rigor and framework for these critical questions. And I don't think those answers are right. I think we should be able to look at the signals of the business to understand when and how fast. And so your question, Mac, like, what are the common things is like, first off, just like going too early. without a proper analysis of what it takes to start adding reps consistently. And
Mhm.
we talk about that, and you've lived through that, both of you. Another big one was just like uh, oftentimes with like direct sales businesses, scaling means adding sales headcount. And they kind of bring up the spreadsheet and say, all right, we need to triple this year from 5 to 15, which means we need to add 8 salespeople. Let's do that in January. And it's just like, as opposed to it just being a pacing that occurs through the year and forever. Very, very common mistake. So those were like
On
some
that
of
one
the,
right
yeah,
there, you see this all the time. Well, a couple points that you touched on. One is they take money and then they just hire a whole bunch of sales reps.
yes, all the time.
They've never done a proper ideal customer profile.
Right.
So, and a lot of times, unfortunately, it's driven by the founder who really thinks everyone is going to buy their baby.
Mm.
And I've said to them at some point, everybody will buy your baby. But right now, if you want to efficiently use those dollars, we have to figure out what the ideal customer profile is and aim our arrows at that ideal customer profile to get the greatest return on those dollars. That's one. Number two, what you see all the time, which you pointed out, is they might have a 6 month ramp time. And let's say they're on a calendar fiscal year. They don't start planning till November or December.
Crazy.
To your point, they tell the CRO, hey, you had 10 reps, they did $10 million, let's say, so averaged 1 million. Okay, next year you're going to do 25. Hey, how am I going to do that with 10 reps? Well, go hire 15 more.
Right.
But when you hire 15 more right now, you're not going to get all A's. You're going to get one A, 7 B's, and the rest are going to be C's. And the managers take the quota and then they horsewhip the guys. And then people are like, I can't work in this culture. And give it like 6 months, they'll have a really bad quarter, and then the VCs want to pull the reins back on the company. It's seen that thing many times.
Let's work backwards, of course. Like, it's how many times have we, I remember I just even this year, we just did the investment and the VC was like, okay, cool, hire 8 reps next month. The company doesn't even have a sales rep yet. Like there's no like understanding of, let's even talk about like how many applications to first interviews to like reference check to offers do we want to have? Because that funnel probably would represent the quality of the hires that we're going to have,
Mhm.
and who's even doing that? We've hired 2 reps in a year and now we're going to hire 15 in a month. By the
And
way,
if you
what
haven't done the ideal customer profile to understand which persona you're going to sell to for which particular use case, you don't know if the reps have that skill to call on that size company to that persona.
let's go to that one. Why does it happen? And I think where it comes back again is like a little bit of confusion around I took venture capital and the needs of a VC firm inappropriately translated down to the execution of the business. Where, hey, VCs, you got to invest in stuff that's going to exit north of $1 billion. Like we need to see a multi-billion-dollar TAM. It's just how the asset class works. I think the confusion happens is like the entrepreneur thinks they need to prove that in the first year. They think they need to prove that they have customers in APAC, EMEA, and North America, SMB, mid-market, strategic, healthcare, finance. It's just like, no, we just need to we need to believe that it can go there. But honestly, as you go from 0 to 1 and 1 to 10, let's pick the market that's going to be the easiest to go there. That is repeatable. And that's where it just goes off. And it's crazy that I have to stand up in front of founders and say, you think that your ICP is what you put on your website and what you put in your pitch deck. Your ICP is who your salespeople go after and close. That's the market that you're in. And if you're not like diligent, they're always shocked when I tell the story of Halligan in year 3 of HubSpot ripping up the contract from Meta that we sold them because they would have destroyed us, even
Right.
though it would have doubled our revenue in 1 quarter. It's just like it sends the signal to them.
The other thing that you see too is when they feel like they have to hire those 8 reps that you described, they think they have to do what I call sprinkle the infield. They have to put one in every major city in the United States. When I say, wait a second, if you do your ideal customer profile, you might find that you could stick 3 or 4 right in the Bay Area right
Yeah,
now and never
they're
have
all
to
there,
go
or New
outside the Bay
York,
Area.
or
As long
wherever
as they keep,
whatever we're selling to.
yeah, if you that's where your ideal customer profile is,
Yeah.
that's where you stay.
And the other thing is, I just want to put a little plug in for the book again. Science of Scaling. It's pre-order now on Amazon. It's going to launch February 3rd, but we want to have this. If you're listening right now, go out and get this book.
Thanks, Cap.
You're welcome. I want to talk about this science part because one of the things and I told you before we got on the podcast, just for the audience, I had to take some of those special, I don't know, what's it called, Gilbo something to get my brain synapses going because, no, I'm serious because what I love about you, Mark, and it's in the title, like I remember your background. You're a technical guy. You're like
Mhm.
I think you started as an application, not an application engineer, but as an engineer
Yeah, I
before
wrote
you went
code.
into sales.
Yep.
What I love about this is you brought the science and the art together. And I don't,
Mhm.
I really want people to understand what you're getting into when you go get this book. When well, also you guys are talking about here, we're talking about this seller. We're beginning to talk about product market fit and ideal customer profile, but we haven't even differentiated on the type of seller. So the science gets down to
Mhm.
it's not a seller is not a seller is not a seller in this science and in
Totally.
this art of scaling. Could you talk a little bit about
Yeah, definitely,
that?
Cap. So
Yeah.
the way the framework works is it clearly defines 3 phases you need to go through to go into the growth mode. Product market fit, go to market fit, growth and moat. Nothing crazy in there other than like go to market fit's probably a little less known than product market fit. And I would say like when I do speeches to students, founders, entrepreneur like conferences, and I say, when are you ready to scale? A very common answer is product market fit, which is a great answer. And that's a term that probably was invented, I think, in the beginning of the century. Eric Ries and Lean Startup, Steve Blank. Um, what's crazy about that, even though it's a good answer, is if you go back and ask those 100 entrepreneurs what product market fit is, you get 100 different answers. Half of them are like a revenue line or a customer line. I have product market fit when I have 1 million in revenue. No way. The 3 of us can sell ice to Eskimos. Eskimos don't need ice. There's not product market fit. We can get $1 million of revenue. It has nothing to do with revenue. It has everything to do with customer value creation.
Yes.
And in a lot of businesses, that is measured by retention in the long term. And the book proposes how to form your own leading indicator of retention. So that's how we root and measure that we have product market fit. And then you go to the next phase if you do, which is go to market fit, which if you do product market fit well, you're following the words of Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, who says, do unscalable things early. Like when we're chasing product market fit, we don't need 1,000 customers. We need like, depending on our ACV, we need like few dozen meetings, probably like 50 intros, 30 meetings, 10 pipeline and 5 customers. Like we can do that through our network. I don't want to talk about standing up an SDR program, content marketing. Like we're doing founder selling. Like I don't want to pay my rep on commission. I want to put them on like just an equity, just like my founding engineers. You know what I mean? Like we're operating. We've seen this mode before. But then once we achieve it, and it's like, holy cow, I signed up another 5 customers this quarter, and 4 out of 5 are successful and going to retain. We have product market fit. I agree. Now, are we ready to scale? No, because we need to go to market fit. We need a playbook. We need to know how we're going to comp our reps. We know what the scalable pricing model is. We need a scalable demand gen channel, right? So there's a new set of things we need to work on now that we shouldn't have been working on before. And we measure that with unit economics. Then we're ready to scale. Now, to your point, Cap, I talk about over the decades, I've talked about designing a go-to-market system, not thinking about sales as an art form, but trying to systematize it. And I outlined clearly the components of the go-to-market system, one of which is the profile of the rep that you hire, which you're talking about, Cap.
Yeah.
And so that's what not only does the book outline these 3 stages and how you know where you are, but it also informs you on how you optimize the go-to-market system for each stage. the rep you hire, the demand gen channel you choose, the way you pay your reps, the way you price your product, etc. And honestly, like I think the hiring model that that was best initially crafted very well on the sales learning curve that you guys might remember from 20 years ago. And basically like, and I think the work has like evolved a little bit, but like that first hire, it's not about like the number one rep at PTC right now would be a terrible first hire at product market fit.
100%.
Yeah.
Because like they joined the company and they're like they went to a month of training, medic, objection handling, battle cards, their manager was there with them. These folks have nothing, right? Like we need someone who's like half account executive, meaning like they can run a commercial process, blah blah blah, talk about money, but almost like half product manager, where they can like
100%.
yeah, look at
Love
like
that.
20, and then communicate to the engineers, right? That's our first hire cap to your point. But once we get to go to market fit, now we need a process. We need a process builder. And once we go to the growth mode, now we can deal with the number one rep from PTC, someone who's like a process follower, they're coachable. So that's how the
Such a
framing
great
works.
point. Well done.
You had a lot in there. So I
Yeah.
want to unbundle some of it and
Yeah.
emphasize some. So it's
Yeah.
so true what you said that the first couple reps, especially if you hire somebody as a CRO, as a startup, they have to have that mentality that, hey, I'm basically half product manager and I'm half sales rep. Definitely.
Yes.
Number two, going back to the snowflake thing where they think that, everybody thinks the thing just, took off like a rocket. And I can remember standing in the hallway with Chris Degnan. We had an ideal customer profile. And at the time, could only sell to tech and ad tech. But kept going down those bowling alleys, making money until we had enough revenue to fuel development to go into other bowling alleys, right? So the ideal customer profile continued to change over time, but we
Yes.
weren't just sprinkling the infield with reps and then
Yes.
running out selling to all different types of industries. We knew where the money was. It's like the old Jesse James thing. Why do you rob banks? Well, because that's where the money is, right? One other thing you mentioned that's a major concept in your book, The Science of Scaling, is that you talk about the leading indicator of retention.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit for the
Definitely.
audience?
Definitely. As we discussed, the three phases I see these companies go through is the first product market fit, then go to market fit, then growth and moat. And the subtitle being using data to decide when and how fast to scale. So we need a quantitative way to know where we are. So, even we read about product market fit, like the Wikipedia page, half the definitions are like, it's a feeling. You just know it when you have it. Like that doesn't settle with me
No,
well as like
no.
an investor, as a CRO that's like putting my career on the line. And so as we discussed, like I think the purest definitions of product market fit is not like how much inbound demand you have. It's not how many customers you have. It's not how much revenue. It's what we talked about is the predictably creating customer value. Like when you promise something to a customer in a sales call and they buy it, that it comes to life. That's like qualitative of what it is. In a lot of businesses today, especially the ones we live in, that's best quantified by long-term customer retention. Like, we talk about greater than 90% customer retention is great. Greater than 100% net dollar retention is great. That's how we think about it in the ecosystem. Now, the challenge is in startup world, we have to move fast. We can't sign up a bunch of customers and then say, hey, let's just wait a year and see if we have product market fit. Like, we don't have that time. And so we have to come up with a quantified metric that we can see and say the first month of a customer's history with us, that if it occurs, they will retain. And if it doesn't, they probably will leave. So that allows us to like hinge this concept of product market fit that's rooted in customer value creation that ultimately is measured by customer retention, but to understand where we are with it every single month that we sign up new customers. And I encourage folks with a framework of P% of customers do e-event every T time. right? So you just boil it down to three variables, P, E, and T. So Slack has a very famously documented version of this. 80% of customers send 2,000 team messages every month. Perfect. Imagine if the founder of Slack, you picture in the early days, there's 6 engineers in a room, they do their Series A, and the founder of Slack says, our first North Star is to get to 2 million in revenue. That you can start to see what starts to happen, right? Versus they say, our first North Star is to get 80% of our customers to send 2,000 team messages every month. That's just the right foundation at that point. So that's what I propose, Mac, is the lead indicator retention is P% of customers do event every tea time.
Yeah, percentage, event, and timing.
Exactly.
IR. Love
Exactly.
it.
I love this because the more companies that I'm interacting with lately, and in the beginning when I heard this, I was kind of like, they would start to talk to me about how much time somebody's spending in the platform, how much time a
Hmm.
customer is spent. And so I was thinking about this and I'm like, yeah, but like the revenue and I'm guilty of it because I'm less science typically and
Hmm.
more on the probably on the go-to-market side. But I completely understand what you're saying because, and this is the caveat, I think. If you don't have good technology, metrics, vision, insight to what your customer is doing
Uh-huh.
or to what that potential buyer is doing or what that journey is going to be, meaning you're not outside in, you're inside out. So we're going to do this and then we're going to feed it to the market. We're going to do this inside, then we're going to feed it to the market versus we fed this, the market has responded this way, we're going to change it that way. I find that people just miss the boat. And you talk about it in your book. You talk about inside out thinking versus outside in thinking. You can't do this without understanding how customers going to use your product. You can't.
Right. And like you brought up time in product, which is great. I mean, you're getting in the right direction. And that's a tricky thing, Cap, is the E. I haven't found like a universal correct E. Just like we don't have like some
Right.
people run medic, some people run band, some run
Yes.
it's just like it just depends on the context. The guidance I give folks there is like, first off, like I see so many people that the first stab they take on it is like they show an aggregate number across all customers. Like, here's how many transactions ran in the install base last month. Look how it's going up. It's like, yeah, no kidding, it's going up. You're adding more customers. Like you had 10,000 transactions last month. Did 9,990 of them come from one customer and everyone else is not using it? Right. So we have to look at it on a per customer basis so we know how many of them are in the green versus the yellow and the red. And then the other one that Mac, you're gonna love because it ties it to comp and the thing that you guys do so well is appreciating your unique differentiator and holding the reps accountable to it. So basically, when you define an E event very well, it is a unique differentiator. And I can tell a very personal story from HubSpot. So the E event for us, the whole formula was if 80% of customers use 5 or more features in the HubSpot platform every month, then that was our LAR. Because we were a platform, right? We had the marketing product, the SEO product, the blogging product. We had like 25 modules. And that was our differentiator against Hootsuite and Marketo and MailChimp. And like, if you wanted the best in class, you go there. But if you wanted the all-in-one, so because of that, the E was the number of features you were using. That's our unique differentiator, as Mac always says. So that's cool. Now you instrument this philosophy of unique differentiation. Now, what's even cooler is to incorporate that into the comp plan. So our LIR is when the customer uses 5 or more features in the platform, we got them. And a lot of customers can get through that in a week or two. Like they sign up, 2 weeks later, they're using 5 or more features. We can pay the reps half of the commission when the customer signs the contract and half when the LIR is achieved. So we don't have to wait a year for retention, but we're forcing the reps to be LTV focused. And what a lot of times when you do this, if you happen to have a a product context where you have a free trial, you have reps getting customers achieving the LAR before they sign the contract to accelerate their commission payment.
Very
So
good.
there's some magic that can be orchestrated here in the entire go-to-market system to align with the health of the business.
You're seeing that a lot in the consumption model as people move to
Totally.
consumption pricing. They're booking their comp plan says I'll pay you so much on the booking, but I'm going to pay you really at the end of the day. I'm only going to pay you when they burn down the credits that
Yeah.
you book. So
I
you're
do want to make
more
one.
focused on helping the customer, as you said, create value with the product.
I do want to bring up one point for your guys' audience in particular is while a lot of this was written from the perspective of founding and starting a company, I have worked with hundreds of businesses that are billion-dollar businesses bringing new products to market using the same
Right.
exact thing.
Right.
Right. Like I think you guys probably do this more in your work is, hey, we're a multi, we're a global company trying to, add 2 growth points, to our growth or to our EBITDA. And they're bringing new products to market all the time. And I think you both have all lived through like, okay, we're going to launch this new product, like engineering, you build it. We're going to launch it at the customer meeting in April. Engineering, you build it. Marketing, change the website. Salespeople, get the training going and the competitive battle cards and the pitches. And then they go to the conference in April and they launch it and the reps start selling it and they miss the number by like 50% because they don't have product market fit. And I think one of our stage 2 LPs that kind of does this at Microsoft, I love his framework. He talks about in 5, 50, 500, 5 reps, 50 reps, 500 reps. So he's like, we got a new product we're bringing to market. Great. Give me 5 reps. Let me prove product market fit according to the science of scaling. I don't know if it's going to take a week, a quarter, or a year, but we're going to do it. Once we do that, give me 50 reps. Then we're going to build the go-to-market fit, the process, all this stuff. I don't know if that's going to take a week, a month, or a year. I don't know. But then once we got that, now I got 500 reps. So like the board's like, okay, I get it. I need $1 billion of value here, but I get it that they're not going to be able to do on day one, right? So I just want to make that point clear that this methodology is just as important to big companies bringing products to market as it is startups bringing new products to market as well.
Although your brain is very science oriented, coupled with art oriented, I want to say that this is a framework, and I like to say that wherever you are, there you go, because we haven't yet talked about the moat, which we will. You've been alluding to it a little bit with unique differentiation, but today's unique differentiation is tomorrow's comparative differentiation, meaning everybody's going to try to do that. So these are kind of sliding scales. And when I think about a framework, and you've done such a beautiful job in this book, of you put the framework on top of wherever you are, and then you see what's missing because it's going to change. How many companies have we all worked with that their ideal customer profile, their go-to-market fit and their product market fit actually begins to slide because something that happens in the market?
Every single one.
Yes. So whatever you came up with, what is it? Von Moltke's, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy type of thing. You can write the plan, but then when you're out there in the market, it's going to slide. But if you don't have a framework, you're not sliding. You're just washing away. Does that make sense?
HubSpot's approaching $2 billion in revenue, I think, and they're still measuring the LAR every quarter.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
have to.
That's right, Mark. I want to go back to ICP. You treat the ICP in the book. And again, we're talking to Mark Roberge about his brand new book due out February 3rd called The Science of Scaling. And you treat, ICP as a scientific input into scaling, essentially. But what I got to understand is why don't so many companies build an ICP? And then to Cap's point, the market changes, competition changes, your product is constantly changing, and they don't go and change their ICP. To me, it's like you're constantly going through, if you do it right, constantly changing your ICP and constantly looking to see whether or not there's real product market fit in different companies
Totally.
and use
I
cases.
have a hypothesis. Can I try, Mark?
Go, go.
Because I look at this, I do this for a living for the last 20 years, and I find that if it's emotional, and ICP is emotional and it's not backed by data, real data, that's the fundamental principle that I see. Because if you have people like me, you guys are a little bit more scientific than me, that can will their way to selling things, and no customer is a bad customer, and we can sell something to, this customer. If you don't have the data to support what actually happens from that revenue from that customer, I think that's fundamentally, like you said, people are chasing revenue versus ideal states. That's my hypothesis, and I think
Of
it's
course.
it's supported in your book.
It's so hard because I think a great ICP is based on LTV, not lowest CAC. And that's where a lot of people get that
Hey,
messed
just for
up.
some of our young listeners or
Yeah.
some of our early people, would you mind kind of defining what that
Yeah.
is?
So it's just like a lot of people, and there is an intuition there, but when you really think about it, it's a broken intuition, which is like, okay, what's our ideal customer profile? Some people might say it's where our inbound demand is, whoever's coming. And it's like, that's scary. Because
Yeah.
that's not necessarily correlated to who you built the product for and who's going to end up being a successful customer. And the next level of answer is like, oh, it's wherever we have the highest close rates, which usually would correlate with a lower customer acquisition cost, right? CAC. And again, like only true if that's a great customer that's going to stick around. It really needs to be around lifetime value. It really needs to be that the ICP is based on segments of the market where when people buy it, they see tremendous value, they renew, they expand, and they tell their friends. And sometimes those companies are not necessarily the highest inbound demand to your website. And sometimes they're not the easiest to sell, i.e., have the lowest cost of acquisition. But like it really needs to be around LTV. Okay. And it's a cool thing because I do talk about at the end, I had to write appendix about how AI will change these concepts.
Yeah.
And I still wanted to write the book because these are not like post AI irrelevant. These are principles that will need to be built into the models. And I'm very excited about how AI will guide this ICP piece. And I actually write a little bit about it. So, um, Mac, what you saw in there was like I took a little deeper view on the ICP. And so I basically set up this green, yellow, red framework that I use with a lot of companies. And basically what you're picturing here, folks, is like you have like 5 to 8 attributes of your ICP. It's common to have like company size, location, industry, stuff like that. So like we might have 5 in there. Okay, so let's just work with 3 to keep it simple. It's like they're in the US, they're between 50 mil and 500 mil. And then we'll deal with healthcare and finance just to have a working model. Okay. So that is our green ICP. Our red is like green is like we want to sell these, we'll take them all day. If we're going to build an email campaign, we're going after them. If we're going to build a cold calling campaign, we're going after those people. Red is you cannot sell these people. If you sell them, we'll rip up the contract. So like if they're in Europe and Asia, we're not ready for it. If they're in manufacturing, we're not ready for it. If they have over 500 million in revenue, we're not ready for it. We're ripping it up.
Yep.
But then like the yellow is like, we're not sure, it's probably going to be where we're going to go next. But if someone comes up to our trade show booth and says, I've been looking for this my entire life, how do I sign up? Or if someone comes as an inbound lead and they're like, this is our number one issue this year, and they're in the yellow. Maybe they're in the tech sector. Maybe they have 40 million in revenue, not 50. So they're close. Then we can sell those people. And that allows us to create a structure where we can explore the periphery of the ICP to naturally expand. And that's what Degnan talks about at Snowflake, Mac, through your guidance. When I asked him, like, when do you go upstream? He's like, you're pulled up.
Yes.
He's like, that's what happened to us is we were selling SMB mid-market to the smaller sectors you were talking about, Mac. And then once they hit 5, 6, 7 in revenue, they had these early adopter enterprises come in And
Yes.
that was in the yellow for them. And they're like, okay, you know what? We'll give this a shot.
Right. And your point is we're not going to have our sales reps target the red or the
Mm-mm.
yellow. But if a customer comes to us and almost like wants to buy, sure, okay, we'll make the effort.
And then
Okay,
we
but you
wake
guys
up,
are
good
making
cap.
you guys are making an assumption, which I love. But what you just said, Johnny, is we have a red, and the sellers aren't going to sell to it. But in reality, like when we go
They
into these
do.
things, and I ask a question, "What's your ideal customer profile?" And if I'm lucky enough to get it, then I get it, and then I look at the pipeline, and I'm telling you, it's right there. And so, what advice
It's
do
in
you
the
have?
red.
Yeah, they're in the red.
It's right there. It's in the red.
Mhm.
They're right there. So, Mark, like, let's say, like,
Mhm.
in a framework example where you're laying it down like an X-ray, and wherever you are, there you go, and you see a pipeline like this, you're talking to existing customers. Let's say you didn't do this, sequentially, and again,
Mhm.
you are,
Sure.
there you go. What do you do as a company, as a total company, not just at the
Yeah, sure.
leadership, sales, marketing? You got to
To
readjust. How do you do
prevent
it?
it, or if you wake up now and you realize you
Wake
effed it
up,
up, and what do you do now?
wake up.
Yeah, sure. So you fix it at that moment, right? So like I've never seen a company where we're starting out, we're pursuing product market fit, and we do our ICP. We do that with every company. I've never seen a company where that initial hypothesis is right and stayed, even for the first year.
Yes.
Like it's just we don't know. And once we start going in there, a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen customers, we start to see the patterns. It's like, oh my gosh, we totally missed that. Like it turns out that like there's a critical component of the tech stack that we're not ready for. So we have to put these people into the non-ICP. So you'll see in the frameworks there that when we're measuring the pursuit of product market fit as measured by the LIR, we push out some early customers who are no longer ICP. And you can just and then so when you're measuring the LIR and you're only measuring on the current ICP. So that would be my answer, Cap, is
Love it.
nail it down now, separate your install base into ICP and not, and then like on the not, like just put them over here. Maybe if you run like an account manager ratio of like, one account manager to 30 accounts, whatever it is just run it as a one account manager to 200 over there. You know what I mean? Like just we're not going to ignore them, but we're going to
See,
model a
this is
pretty
this
bad
is the
churn.
important part right here. I love what you're saying because if you are down the line, and this has happened to force management a few times in the 20 years of our existence. I found it very important from a leadership perspective to communicate effectively the science behind what you're doing as a company. And I have not had one company come back and like think we were jerks because
Mhm.
somebody was not in
So
our
critical.
ICP. But when
Exactly.
you don't talk that way, because no customer wants to buy something that is not, if you're not going to serve me as if I'm your ideal customer, nobody wants to be in that red area.
Right.
But the
Exactly.
sellers listen, all sales leaders listen. What most people do is they just stop calling on those accounts, they stop supporting them, or they stop, and then all of a sudden you get a bad reputation in the marketplace. You're not following up. So
Yeah,
just,
you need a little something. It's a very difficult place to be because
it is.
even like a lot of people make so many mistakes. They try to save every customer, even though we've decided they're no longer a fit. We can't afford that churn. You just got to like wipe off rip off the
Rip the
band-aid. But again,
band-aid.
you have just like a lower version. You have some people there to see what they can do. You're going to forecast a much higher churn rate there. And you will wake up a year from now where if you listen to this and you're like, oh, damn, and you carved it up and 60% were an ICP and 40% weren't, and you put the right ratios on the 60% and all the future quarters only sell into that
Oh,
ICP,
good.
you will wake up a year from now and 95% will be in the ICP and 5% won't. And I get it, Cap. Like it's
So
tough
good.
because there's going to be a bunch of customers out there like I tried it and it didn't work. And there's nothing you can really do about that other
So
than being crisp about who you're for.
love that. Thank you for that.
The huge benefit that we're not talking about right now is that this isn't only about sales and selling. This, when you do the ICP right, and you have product market fit, it rallies the entire company from a marketing standpoint. They know what the salespeople are talking about. It rallies development when they're prioritizing what features and capabilities should be in the next releases. that's a huge part of this that I don't think most people really take into account. And that's why it's so important to have an ICP and truly understand product market fit and where you, to your point, Mark, creating value for that customer.
There's a reason why I didn't call it the sales system. I call it the go-to-market system.
Yes.
Well
There's a
done.
reason why I didn't call it sales market fit. I called it go-to-market fit because like the sales team is part of the go-to-market team. The
Totally.
go-to-market team is how we create demand, marketing, SDRs, how we sell that demand, sales, how we retain that demand and expand that demand, CSM, account managers, RevOps is supporting us, sales name. Like that's the whole system. And those have to be looked at holistically. That was a massive movement in the cloud era that helped companies, separate themselves.
Let's talk a little bit about aligning go-to-market with product market fit and doing a
Yeah,
little.
definitely.
You
Hey,
talked about
Matt, can I do something really crazy
you
for a
can do
second,
whatever
though?
you want.
Really
You wrote
quick,
the
while we're
book, The
talking about
Science
ICP,
of
and you guys are so
Scaling,
passionate
due
about
out
ICP.
February 3rd by Mark Roberge. You can do whatever you want.
I want to go Star Trek and talk about something that probably won't ever happen, but maybe it will. And I want your guys' feedback and how AI will help us with this ICP thing. Okay.
Okay?
So this is what I'm kind of seeing here, where if you are world class in ICP involvement, you
Okay.
have this RevOps team that maybe once a quarter sits down and reevaluates the ICP.
Yes.
And they go through various customer segments on all the things we talked about, size, industry, location, blah, blah, blah. And hopefully analyze the LTV and see and find new hot pockets where the LTV is going up and we can recalibrate our demand generation tactics over there. And maybe some areas where we've lost it a little bit. And maybe we turn that off a little bit and go back to product and say, hey, what's going on here? We're no longer competitive. What can we do? That's like world class today. Now, think about what it's going to be like when AI does that. Because humans are limited to doing it once a quarter across like a handful of attributes. AI can do it every hour on an infinite number of attributes. And so, like, where we might be able to go at some point is the AI is just running and looking at the pipeline and looking at the conversation, the discovery calls, the demos, the pipeline evolution. And it's evaluating that, hey, guess what? We have sales capacity to call 17 new accounts this week. I have recalibrated the ICP and I've looked at the 129,000 companies that are in our ICP. And through a variation of like strength of the firmographic as well as engagement, these are the 17 accounts to call. So the ICP becomes dynamic and fluid. Is it too Star Trekky?
No,
I think it's very close to
I think
to
it's, yeah,
I
it's
think
gonna
it's
come.
in the old days I'd read something. I can't remember who that dude was that would read all those books about like what was going on in Washington D.C. and about spies, and like then I find
Yeah.
out the guy had 30-year history with all the intelligence
Isaac
agencies.
Asimov? Was that the
What was
guy?
it?
Isaac Asimov?
It might be. It might be. But so like my point is if you can dream it up, Mark,
Yeah.
I know it's coming because
Yeah.
what everything that you just said, people are doing individually like right now
Totally.
in
Yes.
different segments. Like, okay, I want to capture what's happening in the conversation. I want to
Totally.
capture what's happening from differentiation. I want to capture what's happening in pricing. And I guarantee you that that's the world that we're going to live very shortly. Very,
Yeah.
very
One
shortly.
of many cool workflow iterations that we're starting to see here. So,
Love it.
all right. Anyway,
The only
just to
thing I would
cap the
see in
ICP
that
thing.
that
Go
I
ahead, Mac. Yeah, please.
would add to that is you do think you have your ICP locked and loaded, and you have some really good sales reps that know how to venture into different corners of these companies, and they find I've seen it a couple times now at different companies. They find a use case you had no idea your product could do, and it's a big time use case. The ACP is gigantic, and then once that person finds that, you try to duplicate it
Exactly.
everywhere else.
Exactly. I love that. I think like
Johnny,
I
Steve
probably
Law.
And I don't know that AI will find that, but because
well, I think
the
where it
sales reps are
will,
very creative.
yeah, where it will, Mac, is like I have this perception of how like the AI will influence go to market. And the first phase, the humans are still selling to the human buyers, but the AI is behind the scenes doing all this analysis. So I think in that case, Mac, yeah, the creative, I think it'll be a long time for AI to be more creative, truly innovative and creative than humans. There's something because it requires like past knowledge to train models, and the creative process sometimes is like outside of that. And
Yeah.
that's really what you're talking about here is such a creative rep that went out and asked the great questions, and they were so consultative, and they were able to apply this like existing product that wasn't intended for this, but ends up solving this problem. So I still think that would work, is that rep would go out and find it, and maybe their neighbor would see it too, and she'd start closing a couple, and the AI would pick up on that. Like, hey, this is
Total.
a
Yeah.
totally different use case now. That we're going to move this into our ICP, and
Yeah.
when I choose the 17 accounts next week, I'm going to have a couple sprinkled in here to see if there's some energy there. So who knows? It's going to be exciting
And part
times.
of the big part about AI is that you guys are talking about is, and I kept saying the name Steve Waugh, realizing that people aren't. If you've listened to the Revenue Builders podcast, we had Steve Waugh on, Johnny, and a huge elephant hunter where he was moving ICPs all the time at companies. And I think the important thing, like I don't think we could capture what Steve Waugh was thinking, but I think we can capture what Steve Waugh is doing in his activities, who's he's calling on, and how he's calling on them,
What they're talking about,
what
what the
they're
customer
talking
is
about. And
valuing.
Mark, I
Yes.
believe that's coming really quick.
Yeah.
I think
Totally.
that's coming really quick.
Mark, scaling, you talk about bottoms up scaling.
Mhm.
So can you talk a little bit about why you like bottoms up scaling? And I mean,
Yeah.
the leading hit question because
No, no, no.
the top down revenue stuff usually fails. But so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's another part of the narrative in the boardroom, right? Is like it used to be triple, triple, double, double. Now it's like 10x, 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 which I'm a little skeptical of what's going on there in some of those companies. But most of the time, it's kind of a perplexing question when I ask my students. I'm like, hey, hopefully you're in this situation because a lot of them are founders and they're in the product market fit phase. And I'm like, you all aspire to one day having product market fit, getting a $6 million Series A. And the VC is gonna say, how much are you gonna do in 2026? You aspire for that to happen. You're at a 1.2 million. You're gonna close out 2025 at 1.2 million. How much are you gonna do in 2026? They stare at the chalkboard for 5 minutes. And then finally someone's like triple, triple, double, double. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
totally top down. It's totally top down because again, a VC is doing their long-term IRR calculation of what they need
Correct.
to return. And
Yes.
like first off, let's just remember that when a company is bought 8 years from now, no one's gonna ask what your growth rate was 8 years ago. They're gonna maybe look at the trailing 2 years of like growth and all this stuff. And then so we don't necessarily have to be so attached to the IRR. And God forbid we're off from the IRR for a quarter. That's fine as long as we're fixing the business and doing the right pacing. So yeah, fine. We can start with a top down as a general guide. But the bottoms up is the sales capacity that you create and the demand gen capacity that you use to feed them,
Mhm.
right? So like a lot of people get the sales capacity right. They're like, all right, we got to go from like 1 to 4. So I need to add 8 salespeople according to my commission math. And that's interesting. Now, again, they add the 8 people in Q1 and we just don't have the flywheel set up fast enough. So we have to spread those like maybe 2 a quarter instead of 8 all at once. And then we also have to factor in attrition. Then we have to factor in ramp time. So these are all in the sales cycle, right? These are all coming through basic, modeling from the bottoms up. We have a whole bunch of templates on that. But then the other thing that they always miss is the demand gen capacity. It's like, oh yeah, we have 2 reps, they're productive. And yet no one looked at it that like the entire pipeline of those 2 reps came from VC introductions. And that doesn't scale to 8 reps.
Right.
Right. So like whether these reps are creating the demand themselves, we have SDRs, we have a content marketing machine, or all the above, we need to make sure that we have the bottoms up sales capacity to get to the 4 million and also the demand gen capability to feed those reps, whether they're doing themselves or some outside factors are
Right. You
to
see
get there
that
as
all the
well.
time, though, as they start to scale. The demand gen does not keep up. So the demand gen can support 5 reps. When they go to 20, it's still the same demand gen team.
And they don't find out until like the board meeting in April to review the Q1 results, whereas it was very evident back in August when we saw the meetings per rep go down, but no one looked at it.
Let me ask you guys a question on this topic because it's coming up a lot right now with planning in companies that I'm involved with on demand gen, company demand, company generated leads, individual generated leads. What advice do you have in these models, Mark, when people are like, because Johnny just said, well, we don't have a demand gen that can do that. Does that change when we go to 2 from 8 or what have you? Does that start to change the type of seller, where they come from, and how they're going to do their own generated leads? What's the science behind that? Because people are struggling with that.
So it's a great question, Cap. So bring it back to the framework, product market fit, go to market fit, growth and moat. We know where we are, and we have the go to market system that's changing as we go through. Who do we hire? How do we pay them? How do we price the product? How do we generate demand?
Yes.
And so in the product market fit phase, I like unscalable things early. Let's just do professional networks and get there. We can get to enough meetings. We don't have time to build a cold calling program. When the go to market fit, that's one of the things we have to do is we need at least one scalable channel proven so that when we look at the plan to add 8 reps next year, we have the confidence that we'll be able to feed them and not just like starve everyone. And when we get to the growth and moat, we usually have to go multi-channel. We need multiple. I've never seen a company go to IPO exploiting just one channel. Even PLG companies, every big successful PLG company got to whatever, 10, 50, 100 mil through PLG. They eventually add salespeople, right? To like upscale, go direct, whatever.
Yeah.
So the one very important abstract concept here that hasn't come up yet, Cap, that you're instigating with your question is what I call the inappropriate cut and paste. Meaning like, oh, what do you think we should do for the demand gen? Like, should we do it company driven? Should we do it marketing driven? Should we do it the rep driven? Let's look at what HubSpot did. Oh, they did content marketing. Why don't we do that? Yeah, but HubSpot was selling marketing software to small business VPs of marketing in 2008. You're selling cybersecurity software to, public company CIOs in 2025.
Yes.
It's a different context, right? So we have to be aware of the context as we define every component of our system, whether it's the rep we hire, the methodology we run, the demand gen channel that we choose. And that's something that I outline as like 8 commonly chosen channels and what contexts are usually compatible with them and which ones are not. All right, so I know that's like a it depends type thing, but Cap, that's just to give it to real substance is first off, you can just read that material and you could also focus on companies that have scaled to the next phase that you aspire to that have a similar product and market target. That's going to be a better starting point for you to like pontificate on which channels you should try. And usually the exercise you go through is you put like a team in the room for 2 hours and say, what do you think is going to work? Events, like direct mail, like cold calls, throw it up on the wall and then take a step back and say, okay, we have time and money to try 2 of them. Which 2 are we going to go at? And we go and we try it and we see if we can find like a low cost per meeting and a high conversion rate from meeting to pipeline and customer and all that kind of stuff. And we let the data speak and maybe we got them both wrong and we try the next 2. Right. But we're always experimenting. Let's say we hit one, we find SDRs are working on this market. So great. And that's going to support our next year of growth with the 8 reps. We're still experimenting with other channels. Because there's the SDR channel probably won't scale till $1 billion. We're probably gonna have to exploit. Maybe when we go to Europe, we're gonna have to go through the channel, whatever. So that's kind of, I know it's like a little bit of an it depends, but I think I provided a process there, Cap, on how to get to that answer.
You absolutely have. And guy, I know we're doing this a lot, but pre-order science of scaling, because I know this is about the 10th topic we talked about that I can just hear people are listening to this and going, holy smokes, I need this now. So pre-order.
Let's talk about the cost. So you're taking the book and you're donating all the proceeds to a charity. Could you talk a little bit about the charity you're donating?
Yeah, this one's going to mental health, specifically McLean Hospital, who I think is a lot of people agree is like the global leader. They're here in Boston area on, psychiatric research and supporting mental health of all stages. The last book, The Sales Acceleration Formula, I chose a charity called build.org to donate to, which was bringing entrepreneurship to high schools for the worst high schools in every city to get these kids through high school and to college. And I'm really proud that that became a bestseller, and I was, being able to make an impact on that organization. And that was one of the big drivers for me is like, again, I never really set out to write a book, but sometimes you go out and you speak and you stumble across a framework that becomes a little timeless and pretty abstract, whether you're selling software in the US or tractors in Brazil or pharmaceuticals in Europe. And I just happened to stumble across one. And then it happens to support our VC firm, Stage 2 Capital, and the way we invest and support. And I also have been very passionate about mental health as of late. It's been a big thing for me, for my family, and also I think as technologists, I think a lot of tech people really the biggest thing they love is bringing products to make the world a better place. So we never want to bring stuff out. And I think the internet made the world a better place. But with any new tech shift, there's also some negative ramifications. And we're in a mental health crisis for a variety of reasons. And I don't know if AI is going to help or hurt that. I think it will be a little bit of both, depending on who you are. And that was it for me. And it's been a personal thing for me. I've struggled with debilitating mental health throughout my life. It probably spiked the worst. I was at ground zero on 9/11, and that was the first trigger for me is, you know, God bless our military folks and who have to go through this all the time. But being in a moment like that, and then the PTSD that occurred 6 months later, and the severe panic attacks, the debilitating, it was very difficult to work and to work through that. And it's we just need to talk about it more. It's kind of crazy to think that when you meet someone and you find out they're a cancer survivor, let's say they're applying for a job and you're like, yeah, they beat cancer 5 years ago, you elevate that person in your mind.
Yes.
But if you find out that they were had, life-threatening depression and we're in a psychiatric hospital, unfortunately, a lot of people have concerns. And that those are the same things. They're an illness that someone worked through. And so, we need to kind of raise that up. I think every generation that comes through does a better job. And I've been blessed with some wins in my career that people think are important, and they elevate you such that you can talk about these vulnerabilities, and contribute to that cause. So that's where the book is going. I know this cause is very important to the two of you as well.
Amazing. Amazing, brother. That just gave me chill bumps.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much
man.
for sharing that. It is like
Go get this book, Science of Scaling. Now even go get it. Even if you don't like business, go
Thanks,
get it.
guys.
on the mental health thing. It is something that people should talk about more. Like you said, I think if you're a cancer survivor, more people these days are more open to talking about it. And, certainly amongst guys, if you've had some sort of, mental health issue or something, most guys just take that thing, stick it in a jar and stuff it down.
Totally. I mean, that's where all the research goes is when someone does start to vent to you about this, and it's another kind of blessed position I have where, because I talk public about this a decent amount, I get multiple calls a week from people. Hey, can you talk? You're the only that. I just sat down for coffee on Tuesday with someone that just talked to me about something that he hasn't talked to many people beyond his wife about. And the biggest, all the research points that they just want someone to listen and not try to fix it, but just empathize with what they're feeling. And that allows someone to move through and prevents them from spiraling further into a bad spot, So we'll get better about this stuff. And appreciate providing the platform to talk about
We
it.
should do we don't have enough time to get in. All three of us are card-carrying members of mental health crisis.
Sure.
And we should definitely come back and talk about this. I just want to encourage people that are listening, don't isolate, the first thing that I know from experience, if you're struggling and you find yourself isolating and you find people reaching out to you and you not reaching back, there's your sign. Plenty of love out there in the world. You just got to accept it. So, buddy, I just got tremendous respect for you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Cap. Appreciate it. Thanks for the platform to talk about. I always love jamming with you guys.
Amen.
We're talking to the one and the only Mark Roberge, author of what's going to be a best-selling book, The Science of Scaling, due out February 3rd. They could get it, Mark, on Amazon or their favorite?
Yeah, anywhere you
Pre-order
want to
now.
go. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, wherever you want to go. It's out there now. You can pre-order. Appreciate
Pre-order
it.
now.
Thank you, Mark Roberge, for everything.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I think it's probably our third or fourth time together
It
in
won't be
this
the last.
setting, and probably our 100th time together outside. So I always enjoy jamming with you guys.
Yeah.
Same here, buddy. You crushed it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Mark, thanks, John Kaplan, and thanks to everyone for listening to another episode of the Revenue Builders Podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. This show is brought to you by Force Management, where we help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Check out forcemanagement.com for more information.